Hey, it's Joe West from the West Barn with
Mike Shimshack.
And Harry Miree.
Hello, dudes.
YouTube sensation, touring drummer, studio drummer.
Once upon a time when society existed, maybe.
Now you're leaning heavy into the YouTube thing, I would imagine. You got more time for it.
I'm just a guy in a bathrobe in a house at this point.
That's good content for YouTube. Well, let me tell you why I was so excited about having you on. Well, I love that you have a YouTube following because you've got a big channel, like over 100,000. How many people are subscribed?
I can't believe it. Dozens and dozens of people.
Come on, no, seriously, how many people?
I broke 100,000 last year.
Awesome.
I never thought that would happen in my life.
Which is a big deal. If anybody has ever thought, you see only the biggest things on YouTube and you see how many millions of views they get. To have 100,000 is giant to have them as subscribers. But what I really loved was his content is hilarious, but it's equally informative. Like all the information I really want to get while being entertained the whole time. And I find as a result that I watch your videos from start to end.
Dang, Joe, thank you. I feel the same way about the West Barn.
Well, I hope that we can get our analytics to say that. Do you know in the YouTube analytics, do you go in there and see what your listener retention is?
Once upon a time I did, and then at some point I crossed this threshold of, how about I just make stuff that I think is good?
Yeah.
And the water will flow.
I'm selfishly, I'd like to know what that retention is because I find that every video of yours that I watch all the way through.
Thank you, man. I know that YouTube cares about that. I feel the same way they do. I don't want to waste anybody's time. Every time I click upload, I have this nauseating, fearful feeling of like, dude, I'm asking for people's time and attention. I don't want to screw this up.
That's a good thing. That's a good way to think about it, though. It's like making music. If you're going to ask somebody to sit down for 3 minutes and listen to the song, don't give them a shitty song.
Dude, amen.
Right?
Amen.
I mean, we're obligated to say, we're going to deliver this, so it better be worth the time to expect them to sit there and watch it.
That's where my heart is. Some of them suck anyway. The videos, I mean.
I haven't seen any that suck. I tell you, one of my favorites was the Day in the Life of a Studio Musician, of a touring musician.
Yeah.
And all the information that goes along there, you are genuinely honest. The one where you did your financial reports, from W-9 or not W-9, 1099 exact amounts showing what he made every year and how it got better and why he made that decision and the life you have to live because of making that decision. Nobody's that honest.
Thanks for checking it out, man.
But, drummers will, not just drummers, everybody will be like, hey, I'm really killing it. Here's my Instagram picture. I'm on this really cool 53-foot Provost tour bus. We were in this really cool gig and we're playing in front of 10,000 people. But the reality of that is that very few people are honest enough to say, man, it's not easy. I made a decision to live this life and I'm going to commit to it. And it's like, I'm going to be okay if grilled cheese and Roman noodles are in my future because it's more important for me to do what I love.
Man, how cool and validating that you would put that way. I don't say some of those things explicitly, but I do really strongly feel like those of us that are going to hang on and continue to play the instruments, which is like a very toxic thing to build your life around, the only way you hang on is if you love the doing of that thing in and of itself.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
There's so many easier ways to make money.
So many easier ways. Like we just talked recently, like coal miners don't want their kids to be coal miners and songwriters probably don't want their kids to be songwriters and teachers don't want their kids to be teachers. But at the end of the day, what you should really be hoping for is that they suffer enough being great at something that they love doing, that at the end of their lives, they would consider whether they did it again, right? Or recommended it. It should be tough.
Yeah. Well, you sound like you speak from experience, man.
I think we all do. All the people that we have on this podcast talk about like, oh, would you do it again? And there's always that second where you could see them doing the calculus, right?
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that I love about you is that I believe you. So like as a record producer and a songwriter, we're continually trying to be believable, to have moments, honest moments that translate through a song or then through a record or through a performance. And people were really keen. And I turned down lots of records from rich, well-funded girls that I don't believe. You probably know because as a side man in town, you're probably on a lot of these tours that are well funded, but maybe not well
Those girls
originated.
They are my specialty. I had some prime years, man, where I was drawing maybe better money then than some of the major label gigs I ended up doing later, because somebody's dad is an orthodontist, the most successful orthodontist in some corner of the country. Oh, I'm being too specific, man. But at the same time, I can describe 10 artists that I've met here that can get a certain ways down the road with the budget they grew up with.
Right.
And maybe it helps, looking good on paper as well.
Well, going back to the beginning of this conversation, it's like whether you believe somebody or not. And part of believing someone, I think they have to know what they are. As an artist, they have to be committed to their existence. You can't make them question their artistry, right? And there's a point at which, and I don't blame people for this, but they're too young to have that. And if they're too young to have it and well-funded, well, then you've got a perfect storm of ahead of the pitch, right? These people aren't ready. They may have been ready if they had waited and taken their lumps, found out who they were, got on the road. But some of them buy their ways onto tours. Some of them end up just going into the studio. Countless stories of people going into the studio, spending $100,000 on cutting 5 to 8 to 10 songs, $100,000 to do that, and then have nothing. It's not even representative of who they are because they haven't become yet.
Oof, I hear that, man. And a number of my friends are in their entry-level deals on the road right now, baby acts on Warner, what have you. And I've noticed that even some of them do have some vague sense of who they are, but the system they've just signed into for that $90,000 advance is, we know better than you do who you are. Right. Go cut the 5 we want on you.
Oh, yeah.
That's true as well. And I think I don't know what the answer to that is.
Dude,
because it's their money, right? And they're going off actuary tables of what works and what doesn't. But at the end of the day, they all really want an artist.
As far as yes, agreed. As far as I'm concerned, you're on the bullseye. I know artists like this way too. They're a blessing. It doesn't matter how many important people tell them, hey man, this is the box we're gonna force you into. The true artist, like you're saying, goes, well then no thanks, because I know who I am and I know what I want to say.
And then go into obscurity because they don't have the means.
There's
ultimate catch-22.
So there are case studies out there. There are guys that have made it work, putting their foot down. Even, I'll tell you from the perspective of a sideman, how we see this manifest at the entry level of these record deals a lot. There are certain gatekeepers in town that you get handed to in terms of your live band. If you sign your entry level deal on the row, your music gets handed to some gatekeeper guy, and he goes, okay, I'm going to put your band in place for you. These are the guys that are going to play for you. And I've been fired by this guy over and over again because he likes getting rid of the so to speak, hometown boys that come with the artist before they have the record, kicking them to the curb. He's kicked me off like a bunch of gigs so he can put his guys in place, okay? And that's how that system works. In the day I knew that Troy Cartwright knew who he was, okay? Troy Cartwright's on his way still. I don't think they've sent him to radio yet. Maybe they're going to send him this year. He's on Atlantic, maybe. Dude, all he had to do was put his foot down and go, I picked these players for a reason and I like them, so they're playing for me. And we went on this tour with him. I couldn't believe it, man. It seems guaranteed that your head is going to roll once these business guys.
Well, and how much do you love a guy like that in a sea full of followers afraid to lose their deal? Yeah. How much do you love it when a guy actually sticks up and says, hey, I want this guy. There's no reason for him not to be in the band. He's a blast. I can only imagine that you're a total blast on the bus, right? And to be around for the other 23 hours. And for the 1 hour on stage, you're a great player. So it's like at a certain point, sometimes it takes a little bit of backbone to step up to people.
Like, it's the first I had ever seen of that. A
Right.
guy face.
How many years of that?
It doesn't happen often.
Yeah. So bless Troy Cartwright, man. I wanted to call him out by name.
That's cool.
And
Yeah,
I think
really
that
cool.
that instinct, regardless of the players he brings, he applies that instinct to everything he does. He gives a shit about it. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to serve him well, man. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before we get too far, I want to remind everybody to share this podcast to friends and family. We're we're grassroots, and we don't do any promotion purposefully because we want to focus it on the right audience. If you think someone's a good listener, tell them about our podcast, From the West Barn, everywhere you can find them. It's on YouTube as well. If you do subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell and go ahead and subscribe on all the streaming platforms like Spotify.
How do you do, Harry?
Ring the bell, dudes.
How do you do? You're the YouTube master.
Teach us.
How do you do what? You get lucky, man.
Well, I think it's really. I think that you're in a really cool spot too. It's like you've been sort of cast away so many times, but now as I watch your videos, I'm saying you're actually becoming the guy. You're getting the tours, right? You're getting in the studio. I notice you play with a lot of the same guys in the studio. I assume those are guys that you tour with.
Yeah, I all the players that I hire for sessions that I'm leading, I met them all on the road. That's like the breeding grounds for. Yeah. That's like the first meat grinder we all get crammed into, and more of us are getting on records now, mainly demos. That's where I live.
Yeah.
And if I'm on the radio, it's because a demo that I was on accidentally got upgraded.
Like that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah.
That's the way it happens.
But it's like interesting. I remember being young and feeling like there was this 8-ball, right? And I was on the underside of the 8-ball and I was getting rejected and I was not getting opportunity even though I perceived that I had talent and I could do just as good a job and I was killing it. But then I remember you sort of get up to this belt of the 8-ball, the middle, where it's like, hey, every once in a while, I'm getting it. I'm getting the tour. I'm staying on the tour. I'm starting to do some recording dates. They're now demos. A couple of them are going to radio. Now I'm getting master dates. And then you get to this point where you start to get stuff. Like once you have a big hit, people just throw stuff at you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, this is kind of like that record that you did that was successful. We're going to have you do 100 million of these things a year. And you're getting all this opportunity that you probably shouldn't even get. Dang. But that's just the way it is. And it feels like you're kind of at that point where people are starting to notice who you are as a drummer. And it's starting to be like, it's 50-50 now. And pretty soon it'll be 75-25, and then you'll be killing it.
That's like astronomical to think about, because I still conceive of myself as the 13-year-old that just got a drum set for his birthday, man. That like internally, emotionally, I'm still 13 years old, you know? So yeah. That's still how I see myself. And like you're saying, the externals are changing. I would also point out that I wonder if this was your experience too, Joe. It seems like you rise with your class a little bit too, right? So I owe the house that I live in to the success of the people around me who just bothered to keep me around.
That's a huge point. Everybody wants to come to town and then start working with all the moldy oldies. Uh-huh. It's like, hey, maybe I could, go right with this guy as a bunch of number ones. And it's like, you find out real quick that it's like, you come up with a group like in high school. It's like your freshman, sophomore, junior, seniors. And then it's like, you guys are just killing it for a period, and then you become the oldie moldies.
I guess so, man. I have more and more back problems every day. I think I'm on my way to
that one piece of your video where it was the life of a touring musician, where you go and you grab like the lid for the road case. Like the deal is you find the lightest piece that makes it look like you're doing. I died because I've done that many times.
Oh, nice, Mike. Thank you.
I was like, that is really funny.
I don't know if people really know this that watch them though, that the information is crazy valuable.
Yeah.
Like they can shorten so much of their trajectory if they're not just like taking it as a really hilarious 10 minutes. If they listen to it and they wanted to break into the studio world, it's a game plan to do that. It's a blueprint to do it.
Dang. Well, that makes me feel great about it. The comedy that I worship, like the funniest things in life to me are true. They're funny because they're true.
Right.
So when I write these videos, like that, that day in the life of a road musician, that was like 13 months of shooting, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
But a lot of the bits I wrote in advance.
So it wasn't a day in the life at all. It was 13 months in the life of.
When I saw that we were going to do the MGM Grand, I had been there a bunch as a kid, seeing some of my favorite bands, and I thought that's the right sentimental sort of common. Doesn't matter where any of us live, we all know that place.
Sure.
We all know the Tyson thing, and I thought I'll build it around. I'll spend all my money on that day, like fly somebody out to follow me around that day, and the rest. I shot a lot of sound checks on my own and a lot of the little incidental walking through the venue kind of B-roll that you saw. I shot that really gradually over the course of like an 8-month amphitheater tour. But I tried to build it around one day. At any rate, I wrote a lot of these bits in advance knowing every day I have to be looking out for, like, let's take the stagehands, for example. I got to find the right a communal sense among them, or the right rapport that I can get them to push me across that road case by all those trucks, like, over and over again, and kind of make fun of themselves for stealing my shit. Right. You know what I'm saying? And you can't, like, predict what venue you're going to find them in. But when I wrote a lot of those bits, I only wanted to keep in the things that I wrote because they were true and I really felt them. And some of it's a little bit dark. When I got done editing that video and I watched it all back, I go like, man, I'm kind of cynical about touring in some ways. But
I don't think that ever comes off. Not to the viewer. And it's all true. It's like that, the thing where you're going through your income, that's some blatantly honest. Nobody does that, which I applaud you for doing it, because I think it's like, why not tell people? What is you were saying, what's the big secrecy of how much money you make?
You know what set me off on that, Joe, was I was on a gig where we were told we'd be fired for telling each other how much we make. And I thought, like,
the first thing you know is you're not getting paid the same.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that rule's probably not in our best interest. Like, who are we protecting here? And so, but people upheld it on that gig because they were afraid. But that made me go, when my instinct is fear, I try and, like, swim into that a little bit, especially at that time with these videos. There weren't 120,000 people subscribed. It was like a much smaller pool of people. And so I felt a little, I thought I was at the right precipice to, like, take a risk and pay the price for it at that time. And I'm glad I did, man. Thank you for watching it. And I'm glad that it resonated.
Well, when you do a video, I know maybe because you had to get the B-roll, it was 13 months. How long does it take you? These videos are usually about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So how long does it take you to write it, shoot it? And I can't imagine organizing B-roll of venues for a day in the life of a musician, touring musician. Like, how organized are you? Like, what does it entail to get 10 minutes?
Oh boy, that one broke me in half, because you're trying to capture in amber a world tour. That was astronomically more footage than anything I had to shoot that I made. You know,
it's the biggest one you've ever done?
Yeah. And
so did you keep track over the time you were doing it and going, okay, these are kind of highlights?
I should have.
Folders of, like, hey, the second tier of an auditorium walking towards the stage. It's like, how do you even know where to find this stuff after?
I wish. I mean, there are good tools in Final Cut for cataloging those things. You can assign keywords. You can stack keywords.
Do that?
No, I did none of it because I'm on tour. You know, I'm like trying to do my job. I'm trying to not get fired for the thing that I'm being paid to do, which is play the drums. And man, I didn't want certain people around me to see the camera because I didn't want to undermine the reason we were there, which was to play those gigs, man. Right. I did want to honor that and try and fit the rest in between. By the time I got home, it's so funny that every January 1, I'm pretty religious about this. I set the goals for that year for myself, okay? And one of my goals this year was release 5 YouTube videos. They're already out. I'm done. I can retire for the year. It's so fun.
Thank you, COVID.
At that time, yeah, there's the bright side for me, man. Not without the massive guilt that has been a much shittier experience for a lot of other people. But I'm introverted. I'm in my sweet spot, man. I just sit at home and drown in footage. It's hilarious to think that at the beginning of this year, I knew I had 180 shows on the books. How the fuck was I gonna make 5 of these? Especially this one, dude, because I wasn't diligent on the way in. I wasn't diligent shooting it because I was so busy. Every day on the road felt so hectic. So instead, all of May and June of this year, I watched hundreds of shows on triple speed, looking for drumstick drops, looking for, here's a nice emotional moment on stage where everybody's looking the right way and the lighting is right. I can use that as 2 seconds of B-roll. It's like, I watched every second of all of this footage. Wow. And paid the price. And I think the damage, the psychological damage from that is going to make me super OCD for everything I ever shoot.
That's interesting to know that you're shooting for 5 videos a year, which I'm thinking, wow, I would assume that you're doing a lot more than that, because it's just every time you turn on YouTube, you'll see, now that I'm following you come up on my timeline. Cool. But how many videos do you have on your channel?
Over the long run, okay, I started in 2014. Like any video that anybody might stop me in the airport about right now happened in the last 6 years. everything that I made before 2014, you can't find it anymore. And nobody was looking for it anyway. I made one every Monday in 2014. I heard Papa Stash say this on this show. Be consistent. Just make something on a regular basis, right? I bought into that because every ebook that you dig up on like how to do good at interneting, like it says like pick your lane and then just hit it over and over again. Keep throwing noodles until one sticks. Here are my 2 observations from doing that in 2014. One, time became the dominant priority in what I was making. So I was willing to cut certain things short because, dude, Monday is not going to wait on me to get this right, okay? So I'd force things out. It also meant that some, like, Sunday mornings I would wake up going, okay, I owe the world a video tomorrow. They're expecting it. I don't even know what I'm going to say. And almost like music, sometimes under that pressure, like, you force something out that's really cool and interesting that you couldn't have made pacing around in the West Barn all day, every day going, what am I going to make to take over the world? So I'm glad for a few of those things, but most of them didn't survive. You can't find most of them because they sucked so bad and they were so embarrassing that I took them down. So as it relates to your question now, how many videos are there? Like, dude, not many at all. I would guess like 30.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So the strategy for me now is I've like disabused myself of the make stuff all the time and just even if you don't have something to say.
Well, it works until it doesn't work. It's like the business makes a living doing this. And if you want to do it, you've got to do that. But then Bruce Springsteen comes along and blows the whole mold. And it's like he does it the way he has to do it.
Beyonce drops a record without telling anyone.
Right. You've got to like just find what works for you. It's like, okay, you tried the other way, but it's like you weren't putting out the message that you wanted to put out. So you've got to do it the way you do it creatively. And if people were there, they'll stick around for good content.
Well said, man. It's back to we're asking for people's time and attention. So why don't we make it count 100 times out of 100? Man, some people are prolific enough that they can make that regular rhythm work, or there's a template you can fit it into. I'm a try-hard man. Even like the recording I've been doing over the last couple of months, if I'm playing on something that feels high stakes enough, I know that on the row, we would get a maximum of 2 takes for posterity forever. This Keith Urban thing is going to sound this way forever, and we have 15 minutes to do it. Doing those at home lately, man, and I'm not wasting anybody's time. I'll spend 2.5, 3 hours on one drum track because I'm just such a try-hard man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. And when you're in a studio, you don't want to put that on everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. It is what it is. It's almost a different beast. The when we shoot in the barn, it's different than when we do it on Zoom. There's just certain dynamics that happen. But I think all of us got into something for a reason. So it's like we all want to be a great version of it. So whatever it takes, if your give a shit is high enough, you're going to spend the time to do it. It's like I can remember when phones first came out and I was recording my voice message. It was like it was a full day full of like pre-production and like no, that sounds stupid, and then rewinding, and then that's it, and then hit the pound sign instead of the asterisk, and I mean it's just it's to the center of why we do what we do. And it's like you should give yourself the freedom when you're not ruining other people's day, It's like nothing's worse than going into a demo session hoping you'll get 5 songs done and you get 1 song done. That's a little bit of a nightmare.
Because of that guy.
Yeah, that's the surest way to not get called back for a session, I'm sure, if the drummer wants to only get 1 song done,
Agreed. And I'm hip to that dynamic. I'm unlearning some of that preciousness now that I get everything I'm tracking on this year is happening in my house.
Oh, wow.
So
the stuff I'm seeing you in the studio, the day in the life in the studio, where was that at? Black River?
Ruckus Room.
Ruckus Room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They blur together, man. I had a residency at Station West for a long time, and so that's like the template studio in my brain. Ruckus Room is across the street. I worked a lot in Berry Hill when society was like functioning.
And before we get onto your drum and stuff, I wanted to ask you, do the artists get like a little bit annoyed that you're out on the road with the YouTube thing, or you keep it on the lowdown?
I was going to ask you this because I'm wondering because some of these, if you're out with a baby artist, right, that doesn't have a following.
You're bigger than they are.
Yeah, no, for real. The exposure you can offer. Like there's a guy, do you know what I'm talking about? He's a guitar player out of Atlanta. can't remember the dude's name. Has a beard.
Lives in town?
No, he lives in Atlanta. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well,
he's a touring musician guy.
So if you
Ryan, maybe?
are you saying he's a YouTuber? Yeah. So I have to admit this up front. If you log into my YouTube account right now, the front page would be like all basketball highlights from the 80s
Right.
and like video game reviews. I don't really watch music.
Well, this
videos.
guy, the point being, I'm blanking on his name, but he's a really good guitar player. He goes on the road and he always talks about the acts he's on the road with. You know, it's not as entertaining, it's not as funny as, but it's just his own personality of doing
So
it.
you would think that like a
But
record
it's like,
company would be happy as pie to have 120,000 subscribers.
That's what I'm
Gotcha.
saying. It's like if Harry's on his 120,000 subscribers saying I'm on the road with artist XYZ and they have nothing, they don't have a foundation yet. I would be pumped to put them out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's no. You're such an easigoing guy. You wouldn't make it an issue.
I have a handful of reactions to this. It's kind of a messy subject, as you guys have like found your way around here. I've noted. Where do I begin? So, first of all, like I said earlier about being on the road, I don't want it to ever be unclear why I am riding that bus. I'm there to play drums for and so I do try and like telegraph that. I try and show as opposed to tell that. I never, in any corner of my life, I never identify myself as a YouTuber or something. I've never said out loud to anybody that I make videos. But music is a small world, and some people know me that way, and some people identify me that way, and that's fine. Where it gets messy is some of the artists that I've played for have figured that out, and they've gone, I've never played for an artist that has as many YouTube subscribers as I do. And that's like, when they figure that out, that's a weird dynamic because they start to go, hey man, can we get some of that honey? Like, and so I've been directly asked, and I'm eager in some ways to use names, and I feel like ethically I shouldn't. But recently, in the last, let's say 5 years, I was involved with an artist they were trying to get a song to #1, and there are certain periods of push that you need to jump certain hurdles at radio, as both of you know. Like you got to convert certain spins and ads at the right time and get momentum. Like getting to #1 is this weird moving target, and you have to have the right kind of archery trajectory to it. And they were going into a push and knew that I had those kind of and they asked me point blank, like, hey man, will you promote our song on this thing? And the reason the answer ended up being no, conveniently, was, dude, it takes me forever to make stuff. There's like an order to these things. I'm not willing to just throw anything up there. Sure. A lot of these artists feel like they have to be making noise all the time, and so they're just like the machine gun. They chop up little bits of themselves and just spray it everywhere. Right. I don't feel that way about content as we just discussed, right? I'd rather say something less often and have more impact.
There's a lot of noise out there. In the music world, there's a lot of noise, and just in content, there's just so much noise. It's like, just to find what it is that's compelling, you've got to scroll quite a bit. People just do it to talk a lot. You should do this, though. You should say, yes, if it's a nice shed tour, right, and your support to a nice artist, and you maybe have, by the time, I don't know what slot, if you're direct support, but if you can get the venue sort of full, you should say, every night, if you tell people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I will do a video and promote.
And I want my own bus.
Here's that. Okay, that I'm more interested in. So my reaction to that, Joe, I figured this out gradually too. I do get approached sometimes with like, hey man, look how you can multiply your subscribers. This thing has started to hit me lately of, yes, but which subscribers? The kinds of people that show up at 1-800-ASK-GARY Amphitheater to see a Brad Paisley show, like, how many of them do I want watching
That's a great point. That's a great point. And you know who we had on here? Who was dude? The Music Business Blueprint.
Rick
Barker. Rick Barker was on, and I've been learning this slowly. And whenever he said it, and what you just said kind of triggered me. It's like, yeah, but you want the right audience. There's a difference between having an audience and then they ruin your numbers. Like if you're trying to do anything intelligent, that's why we're not promoting this podcast, right? We're promoting it because we want people to tell people about it. But it's like, if we had a bunch of people here just from promotion, we wouldn't know who the real people were anyhow. And they would ruin all of our numbers and ruin all of our directionality as to, hey, where should we really go with this? I get it.
They'd ruin our massive audience.
Ding.
We have 100 subscribers, man.
Do we? On YouTube.
Well, think about this. Every time somebody makes a comment to me like that, asking about, I don't know, the thing that they're putting on the internet, it's like, imagine 100 people in this room right now. We'd be like, dude, 100 people are here listening.
Yeah.
I just remember I have a screenshot of 2014 when I released a video in January. I have a screenshot of my view count and my subscriber count. It's burned into my brain. I had 24 subscribers.
That's awesome.
And I remember thinking, if I got to 100, I'm never allowed to complain about anything ever again. 100 people get the opportunity to hear whatever I have to say. At that point, it is just my job to not let them down. I don't give a shit about 101 through 1 million. Those guys can come along if they want. If I just serve that 100, if those 100, if I really have their attention, I just need to do right by them. I've honestly felt that way since when I got to 1,000, I go, great, I broke it. I've gone way farther than I ever thought. 5,000 felt that way. And then where we're at now is I cannot wrap my brain around it. And so I just have to think of it as sitting in West Barn with 100 people. It has to still feel that.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get to 1,000?
We could probably figure that out, but I don't know, honestly.
I'm just curious if it the grind to 1,000 was significantly longer than 1,000 to 5,000.
Yeah, was there ever a point where it was it just went ballistic?
Yes. Okay. You putting it that way makes me go, yeah, there are big events that change the temperature all of a sudden. The one that I remember is in April of that very first year. I probably was sitting below 100 forever. And then in April, I made this quasi-analysis of the drum stylings of Carter Beauford, who plays in Dave Matthews Band. Yeah. And Dave has such an army of super invested followers. I don't know that he has the biggest audience of any band, but he's got a very vivid audience.
Loyal.
And so it got around on the message boards and stuff and the fan pages, and they go, look at this nerd imitating Carter Beauford, playing all the, and that video it felt like having your first song on the charts, man. It's oh my gosh, people have actually heard a thing that I've done now. And that is probably what catapulted me over the 1,000.
Yeah.
I can't point to whatever the next, if we're going to loosely call it a hit. My sense memory is that not long after that, maybe a year or two, I made some anti-cajon propaganda. A manifesto against the use of cajones where they don't belong. In that one,
and that's a great example, because in that video, bunch of gags, but then he's like, well, why don't you just do this? And he puts together this little cocktail kit that's essentially you could carry it on a plane, right?
Oh yeah, fits in overhead bins.
And it's a kick drum that he's got, sort of a tom drum that he turned into a kick, a small snare, a cymbal, and it's I can provide you a full kit. And then you could work into convincing the band that, hey, let's go ahead and spin up the full production. I thought that was a great example of super funny, compelling, and just a good meme joke. Mm-hmm. But then on top of it, it was but check it out. You could do this. This is a philosophy of how to get past it, cover those gigs with more gear that's more of a drum sound, and then grow where you want to go with the creative direction for the drumming for the project.
Word. Nice. Yeah, again, I don't want to say
Brilliant.
It if I don't believe it. I earnestly wanted to communicate that to an entire culture of people going, I'll pay you $20 to pay $30 to park at this place and hit a wooden box that sounds fucking awful.
Right.
That's gig life in Nashville.
Yeah, totally.
$40 parking to go see, yeah, it's
And I had this feeling at that time, I'm not alone. I don't think, this is happening so uniformly that I have a feeling. And yeah, sure enough, even to this day, the last time I did the Grand Ole Opry, I'm going to try and tell a really concise version of this story, okay? And just give me the thumbs down if you're losing interest, okay? The last time I played the Grand Ole Opry was so Low Cash had this new album last year come out around April, okay? And you're doing the media rounds, you're doing the TV shows and stuff, and one of the things you do is the Grand Ole Opry. And since the album was coming out that day, they put it in the gift shop, and they told, I don't know, how many people does the Opry House fit? 2,000 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
They told all 2,000 of them.
4,000.
Okay,
out of the Opry.
So all 4,000 of them, get handed a little thing saying, hey, if you buy the new album in the gift shop tonight, the first 200 or 500 of you to do that, after the show, we're going to escort you into Studio A, where they used to shoot Hee Haw, you know?
Oh, wow.
And we'll do like a little acoustic, intimate performance for you. Okay, great. So we go to the Opry, and I'm loading in my stuff for that. And the sound guy with the iPad at the little A stage where we're going to do our acoustic thing, he goes, boy, am I glad to not see a cajon coming out of that back. And I go, same here, great, man. And he goes, no, seriously, man. I am so glad you didn't bring a cajon. I hate cajons. I'm like, dude, I feel the same way. This is great. He's like, you don't get it, man. Cajons are like this. You know what? You got to check out this guy. He has this video. Come to think of it, he has this little kid. It's kind of like yours now that I think about it. You got to check out this guy. He roasts cajons on the internet. I go, great. I'll check it out. He's like, no, you really have to. I go, okay, what's the guy's name? He goes, I don't remember. He thought I was dismissing him. He's like, I don't remember the guy's name. You really have to go. As soon as you get home, check out this video. And I thought, I was so gratified by that exchange.
That's awesome.
That the message had transcended the person, had transcended the messenger, if that makes any sense. Everybody that I've met in this little music world in Nashville, like, has some heart in that cajon thing. And I sometimes going to sleep at night, I go, if the only change that I made in this world was that there are 5 fewer cajons at these freaking acoustic radio shows, then I will feel like I've had way more of an impact.
It was all worth it.
Yeah, I didn't solve world hunger, but I solved it. I sold a few less cajons, damn it.
Dude, that's funny.
That's amazing.
Well, you know, and that's part of it is like, okay, good content and compelling way to say it. And it's like, no one's doing that. That's funny. You know, no one's doing the like, it's scripted. And people see it fly by in 10 minutes and they don't realize it takes 13 months in some cases to do it. But at least it takes enough that you're only planning on doing 5 a year, which shows you what it does take. It's like script writing. It's like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's being read off a prompter. It doesn't feel, but the amount of edits and the whole skill of like doing that level of commitment, there's a beat. It's almost like a song. It's like you've got to keep the video going, you know, and it's like you could tell when you miss it. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to do. It's not as easy as it looks. So it's super compelling, and it's I don't think there's anybody else that is doing what you're doing.
When I see my own videos, I go, man, I'm just ripping off the forefathers of vlogging. They none of them are musicians though. I go, Zay Frank, Vlog Brothers, these guys that.
But they're mostly about nothing, and it's just like for the gag.
Word. Yours
has, like, I would build that little cocktail kit.
Yeah, cool. I love seeing them around. I get sent photos all the time. Look, I have 3 or 4 days ago, I woke up and I'm subscribed to the drumming subreddit. And the number one post on the front page of Reddit/drums was like, hey, everybody, look at my Harry Miree cocktail kit or whatever. People are in their garages.
I see a Pearl Harry Miree cocktail kit coming out soon.
Let them know, man. It's happening. Dude kit.
I also love that thing you did with the Blink 182. Where you're like going through all the records.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I'm sure you have clearance issues with copyrights on those videos, right?
So YouTube's in a cool place with that right now. They're going to run ads on it. They're just not going to send me the money. They're going to send Travis the money. I don't know, whoever gets paid for Blink 182 stuff. Certain guys like Prince are going to be really deliberate about if my name's on it, take it down. But everybody else is like, okay, run it and send me the money. People are paying more. There are 1 million more people paying attention to Blink. That's the wrong way to put it because they were interested in Blink 182 anyway.
Right.
But Blink 182 got 1 million more impressions.
It refreshes them. They'll start listening to Spotify for the next week.
And they got 100% of the ad money off of that video.
So here's a question: Is it? I know that revenue from YouTube has like been totally messed with for the past couple of years. Is it financially viable for the work you do to actually do these videos? Do you make enough money to justify them?
Way more than I deserve.
Really?
The caveat is, I don't live in a mansion. I don't drive a Ferrari. In October YouTube flew me to Mountain View to give me they make these little play buttons carved out of silver, and they give out some other trinkets, and you go on like this red carpet thing because there are actual famous people getting these things, and then I'm just like there because they mistook me for a famous person basically. And I met all these other YouTubers, and they're some of the most stressed out people I've ever met in my life because they do have these like lavish lifestyles.
That's their way of making a living too.
And they are still suffering from the
You're living like a drummer.
Totally, man. And I have more than I could do. I eat all the calories I want every day. I sleep in a temperature controlled room. I don't know what else do I
Dude,
need?
they're in trouble. YouTube is in trouble because if the music community, like I told Mike, it's like COVID really didn't affect songwriters because songwriters weren't making any money anyhow, right? There's like the cockroaches. We just like, you could step on us, but we'll still come up from underneath an old shoe. You'll see us, but if musicians can get on it and like with the lifestyle and what they need to support themselves, if they go into YouTube, all those YouTubers are done because they just aren't prepared for that crew of zombies to come into that world and take it over.
Gotcha. I hear that. Man, I have heard from a billion musicians since March. Folks are stuck at home. They can't gig as much and all that. I have heard from many musicians in my life who go, hey man, I'm going to be a big YouTuber now. Which button do I click? And something in me dies when anybody. I took this phone call a week ago, man, from another drummer in town who I look up to a lot, and I will take his call 100 times out of 100. He put me on one of the most important gigs of my life. I look up to him.
Does he call you and say "Buena"? No,
not that mean?
Not near Z.
Oh. I ought to know that, man.
No,
Near Z is one of my favorite.
He's one of our
West Barn episodes.
Close friends.
So, I take his call 100 times out of 100, and he called like a week ago, and he goes, "Hey, I have this friend I met this guy randomly who has 30,000 subscribers, and apparently he's really rich. So that's what I'm going to do now. That's how I'm going to be rich. So what do I do? Just tell me what to do, and I go like the thought that anybody's making anything for YouTube for the financial gain of it, I'm like, dude, go work at AutoZone or something and get way more paid, man. Sometimes the money can follow, but
it's music and YouTube together. This is a dreadful combination.
You've
hit the top two non-money making items in the universe.
And I feel spoiled rotten. I also, following the Dave Matthews theory of you can have a big audience, or what if you have just a really intense audience?
Yeah.
You can have a smaller one, right? So I've paid subscribers that I probably make just as much money off of as I do on YouTube ads. Although the more your views increase, the more they're just going to pay you for ads, and the more crannies they find to cram ads into. Geez, they run them in the middle of the videos now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And some of them, they're like, if you're in the shower listening, you'll go on like that one where it's like, your balls are tired. Yeah. That commercial for some sort of soap for your balls.
Dr. Squatch.
It's just like, if you're not over there because you're wet, you can't touch your phone. It's like, you're going to listen to 20 minutes of this advertisement in the middle of your video.
Dr. Squatch called me. None of these guys have my phone number, but that company specifically reached out and said they want. These companies will offer you any amount of money you want if during your video you're talking about the cajon and then you go, oh, also that reminds me, your balls are tired and you should, or whatever the ad goes, and here's the soap and I'll send you and sign up here. Like they want actually like that direct integration, and they will pay you whatever you want. Wow. I haven't said yes to a single one of those yet because
you're a man of principle.
I would not say that. I'm just more, it's more an insecurity about like, I'm just still trying to, that little room of 100 people that we're talking about, right. I'm just trying to not screw them.
Right.
I'm just trying to not punch them right in the teeth. And if they will Google soap if they want soap. I don't want to tell them about it. And I don't need that guy's money. I will sell out one day. I promise I will sell out one day. But I want it to be for like a trashy, like Tostitos or Olive Garden or something, you know what I'm saying? I want it to come from here and almost be a meme in and of itself that I took the deal. And so when these drum companies reach out, and not even drum companies, but once you cross a certain threshold of subscribers, this is going to happen to you guys like later today. It's going to happen sooner than you think. These companies come out of the woodwork and they'll pay whatever you want if you will just talk about their dumb thing that nobody wants to hear about. So you can kind of sell out whenever you want. I guess I'm thinking, I don't have responsibilities right now. Nobody's counting on me. I don't have kids. I'll sell out later. The longer I wait, the more that price goes up, man.
Well, and I would guess that your audience is a lot more dedicated and it's a pure audience than people that may have numbers larger than you.
It does feel like a little village right now where we all know one another. I don't so much recognize commenters anymore necessarily. I can tell that I've crossed the threshold of now a lot more strangers are walking by and just throwing their trash on my videos and then moving on. Even the second to last video I just put out was of this thing that happened when I was doing a drum solo. Okay,
I saw that with the sticks.
Yes, it was part of what I unearthed from watching this.
Was that real?
What do you think?
I assumed you planned that.
I assumed you planned it too, only because of your sense of humor.
It was with
and that this was
right?
part. This is part of like the gig, like this part of the shtick, the Harry drum solo shtick.
I'm still thinking of a way to address that because there are. I'll give you I am going to find an official way to address that question. I like that there's mystery surrounding it. I learned something really important from the mystery surrounding it. So I don't know if I'm necessarily allowed to say this for 7 more days, but TED is happening here in Nashville in September. And I think that the talk that I was gonna give when TED was scheduled in March was totally different. But now that this has happened, we are thinking maybe that the exact question you just asked me is what I'm going to talk about at TED in a month. And so like, I think I'm going to bite my tongue right now and basically like not talk about it.
He's not revealing it on our show, Joe.
Well, I thought it.
You know what?
I thought that it was
we're
real.
done. I mean, look at that. No.
I thought it was real. You know, I can't see a guy throwing a drumstick up trying to catch it. I mean, the confidence that it takes to do that drum flip for the 4th time. I mean, it's just like at a certain point, any normal drummer would just go move on. So,
yeah, interesting to think about, right? I am either massively competent or massively incompetent.
well, I will say that it still sounded good. The solo didn't fall apart.
Thank God. Yeah.
And do you find, okay, so now the YouTube thing is great. It doesn't compete with your music business muscles, your drummer muscles, your focus on that, does it?
I love that you asked me that because in the fall of 2013, when I decided to start making videos, the number one, I still have this page, the number one thing in bold at the top is none of this matters. I have no valid voice if I'm not doing the work. If I'm not going on stage playing the drum, why should anybody listen to what I'm saying about the drums? Yeah. I feel super religious about that. I also, any room of like accomplished drummers in Nashville that I walk into, there is this tribal thing going on in Nashville, or maybe in music right now, of there's guys who actually play music with other people and do it for a living. They are, let me hazard and say that they are, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they feel sensitively that there's this other camp of drummers who never goes on stage. They play drums in their mom's basement. Those guys are massively more famous for playing the drums. They get all their stuff for free. They make more money. Okay, and then here are the guys doing the real work. There's resentment between these two camps.
Interesting.
Or should I say even more specifically, there's resentment from the true professionals towards the guys that are getting all the money and the free stuff and the attention and the validation. And these guys are the posters on the wall now. These guys are just doing the work, right? I feel that I have a foot in each camp. Anytime in Nashville I walk into a room with these guys, the resentful professionals, I like sweat profusely.
Sounds like a great band name.
What did I just say?
The resentful professionals.
It's amazing.
Would they deny it? I don't know. In some ways, I'm a resentful professional. I feel grateful, man. I don't feel. Anytime I feel heated about the work we're doing, I'm like, I need to go on a walk and remember that I don't work at Walmart. Come on, man. So But that feels in check in my life right now. But the so-called resentful professionals, man, anytime I walk into the high watt and we're doing a loud jams and we're all in the same room together and I have these feelings of inadequacy anyway, I just start profusely sweating around Kevin Murphy. You know what I'm saying? Because do you guys know Kevin? He's like, he played with, when I first met him, he was playing with Randy Houser. He plays with John Party now.
What was the rock band he played with?
Yes, he was in, not Filter.
No, it was a DC-based band.
If you could only see.
Oh, Tonic?
Tonic, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
he was in another band that was a great band. I actually did.
Oh, Egypt and Earth to Andy.
No.
Fuel?
I
No,
wish.
no,
I want to
don't
play
know.
drums in Fuel so bad.
I
I love Fuel.
Yeah, Fuel. Here's a quick side hilarious story with Fuel. So I had a band called Johnny Vegas, right? We were kind of like maybe like a Hootie and the Blowfish kind of thing, you know? It was like, yeah. It was like a total 90s college band, you know? And we did pretty well in like throughout New York State and, you know, Northeast kind of thing. And this is when Fuel was, they were from, where they're Pennsylvania.
PA, Harrisburg, I think.
Harrisburg?
Or Hershey or...
Yeah. But they were crushing, like, down there. Like, they would be, like, it was an event when Fuel played. And I remember we talked about, like, gigging with them. And their manager called our manager and he said, listen, man, I just don't think this is a good idea for you guys, man. Because this band's really good live. And they're, like, a real rock band. You guys are going to get blown off. You guys are going to get blown off the stage. Oh, I mean this with all respect. He's probably right.
So what'd you do?
We didn't do the gig. No.
Dude, I remember that scene from Spinal Tap where they meet when they can't fit into the King Leisure bed, and the hip hop artist is coming out, and the guy from WKRP in Cincinnati is the manager. Yeah. And he says to the guy, they act like, oh, it's a surprise, and they're great to see him. And he says, yeah, I'd like to catch up. I gotta go sit down in the lobby and wait on the limo. If I could count the amount of times I've had that conversation with somebody where they've revealed to you they're at a completely different level than you're ever going to be at.
Yeah.
Man, you saying that is so full circle in this conversation. Spinal Tap is funny because it's true.
Oh, yeah.
The end.
The outtakes in that, I had the DVD back in whenever DVDs were things. And my favorite part didn't make it into the movie was they're all at the venue where they are signing Smell the Glove, and it's black, and they're trying to, you know, they're...
Been there.
So they're there at that venue where you get stuck in the chrysalis, and they start off the gig, they all jump off of the bandstands and land, and when they hit, it's the very first note of the concert, they flip the breaker. So all you hear is like, you know, if you've ever played on the back of a semi in a field and strung one cable across the power of the entire PA, you know exactly what happened.
That's amazing.
But it was such an inside joke, you know, that I was like, it was just, I couldn't believe it. It was so simple too. It was so quick they could have put it in.
Oh, come on. Yes, and it's funny because it's true. Can I tell you my favorite stage failure story, compliments of Rod Morgenstein from Winger? You guys remember Winger?
Of course.
So Winger in the 80s was on this tour with Cinderella and the Bullet Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. They're doing an arena tour. That's big time in the late 80s. Like, these are the prominent bands, okay? And Rod says that they're in, like, Sheboygan, man. They're in on a Tuesday night in some middle of nowhere place, which I lament because I want footage of the fact that this happened so bad I would cut off a finger for it. Okay, so Bullet Boys go on first. Okay, Winger goes on. Okay, but we're here for Cinderella, okay? And Cinderella is like headlining. They have the big production. So the show starts every night with this scrim curtain, you know what I'm saying? You can see the silhouettes of the band through it as light shine through it, but you can't quite see them. And it's going to rise up to reveal them, and then they're going to rock. And so in keeping with that vibe, they had one of who is the lead singer, Tom Kiefer?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Okay, so...
Cinderella? I mean, I didn't really follow Cinderella.
I'm showing the wrong side of me in this conversation. Okay, so, but he had one of these 80s hair metal mic stands that has the acoustic guitar built into it. Okay, so his electric guitar is hanging and his acoustic guitar is right here, and he's reaching around and playing the ethereal intro as the curtain rises. And they're in Sheboygan one night, and Keeper's up there, and the crowd is just, yeah, let's see the band. And the curtain starts coming up, and it hooks the guitar. And it starts bringing that motherfucker up, and it takes it out of his, and it just takes it away from him to reveal this band with their dicks in their hands, man. No sound, no nothing. They're just like, and we're here. And somebody's going to get fired tonight.
Only to drop on some poor kid in the front row, from 68 feet up in the grid.
That's amazing.
You're not coming back from that the rest
That's
of the
a great
night.
part about being a musician, though. It's like there's a moment where it's like end of tour, everybody in the front of the stage, and it's a big deal, and you guys did something, you're playing the garden, and then there's that. And it's like you are 500 milliseconds away from either of those outcomes on any day of your life.
Yeah.
That's the deal with being a musician.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to win a Grammy, or you're going to be called a hack, on the internet. And it's going to happen. It's just, hopefully they don't happen on the same day, you know?
My experience is rapidly becoming both all day, every day. I have been called in a 5-minute period of time the cancer of music and my favorite drummer of all time.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You can see those comments right next
The
to each other.
YouTube commenters are really funny. There is like a whole level of people that should be writing for some online blog.
Mm-hmm.
What is some of your favorite total annihilative comments on your posts?
I thank you for asking to destroy myself into this microphone. The funniest moments for me, this happened like this week sometime. It happens every time. I fall for it every time because I'm such a narcissist that I want every syllable of praise I can squeeze out of that rock. Okay, so occasionally my videos are starting to circulate in these other countries, and people leave comments in other languages. And there's this awesome roulette game you can play. There's no translate button right on the comment. So you have to care enough to highlight all of it, copy it, and then go to google.translate.com and then paste in the thing and see what this guy has so lovingly said about you. And the last 100 that I can remember like some of the words, they even feel like they're kind of positive. And it's like, La Trapeza Rapida Dramero, yeah. And I pasted in there, and 100 times out of 100, this is what happened 3 days ago. It's like, wow, you would think that if you were playing music that complex and complicated, your face wouldn't have to look so dumb and contorted the whole time.
Oh, God.
This is the best part of YouTube videos. I'll just listen and scroll depending on what the topic is. Political stuff is the best.
Oh, yeah.
People get heated, man. I'm interested in that. I feel I've been a little sheltered. Because I do feel like I have a small village of people watching my stuff. If it just stays in that village, everybody's on the same page. Everybody speaks the same dudeisms. Everybody is one-upping dude puns with one another in the comments, and I feel at home. But when a video like that drum solo thing really gets out and people, the passersby, so you can tell when you've crossed the threshold of like, now it has left the nest, and there's no taking it back because people will just spit hot lava of vitriol
But I
on
think
you and your
people
family.
I think deep down, people like you because of that. I think that's why people liked Taylor Swift. She wasn't the rock star that was like super insulated. Like people felt like they were related to her. Someone feels like they got a brother-in-law that's in a touring band. Like you're that to them. You're the human version of what is a lot of times under arc lighting looks like super slick, right? So it's cool to have someone that's human, that's willing to go ahead and bear their insecurities and fail in front of people.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You failed because it wasn't totally easy, right? So maybe there's something to that too.
Good, man. That's important to me, and I feel that when I meet the peoples, any drum shop I walk into, and people feel like know more about me than I think they ought to. There's like a parasocial dynamic to that I'm still processing, but there's also a really good reassuring feeling of like, man, I'm glad that I'm glad that folks feel unalone if they relate to me that way. That makes me feel unalone.
Yeah.
So thank you. I feel that way talking to you guys.
Well,
thank
and you know what? It's the end of our thing, but it's like, and he's a world-class drummer, which we didn't talk about at all. Sorry, total mismanagement of time.
Well, in Middle Tennessee, man, there are billions of those just on this block of the road, I'm sure, man. So
Well, that's not quite as true as
I don't think
there's-
that's true.
There's a lot of great guys, but from what I could see, I really wanted to get into your non-traditional setup. You play like a lefty, just so you can screw up every. Like, can you play you can play a regular kit, right?
Have to. Yeah.
But it's like you can't really go anywhere and jump on a drum kit unless you can do that. But I was fascinated by your drum set. It looks like a Pearl Mastercraft.
Yeah, the one
The hardware looked like it was Mastercraft.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm playing all Pearl reference drums right now, but that's changed a little bit over time.
Well, we'd love to have you back.
Cool.
Talk about drumming, talk about YouTubing.
Yeah.
It's just fun to be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You don't have to hit a certain punch list.
Well, I'm not leaving. Now that I've seen this place, I'm just going to just leave in the corner in that drum booth over there.
I'll leave a bunch of demos here. You play on them. You just text me when you're done. I'll come down.
It'll be like old school, like the beginning of civilization. There's no money here. I'll play on your demos, and I get to live in your incredibly kick-ass barn.
Do you do stuff at home, remote recording for people?
Yes. Some of the greatest opportunities of my life have come this year,
Cool.
recording wise, and they've all happened in my house, man.
And how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, just type Harry Miree and anything you can type it into.
Okay, but is it like
you
what's
have
the
a
best
website?
DM situation or?
Man, I almost said this earlier. If you just go to harrymiree.com, you can type whatever you want to say into this form, and it really does go straight to my inbox. Okay. I'm trying to not change that regardless of volume. I do read 100% of those because that's where work comes from, man. So I don't necessarily respond to 100% depending on the nature of what gets sent to me. But if you're working on something and you want me to work on it, you can go to harrymiree.com. Say whatever it is, and you'll hear from me, man.
Awesome.
But I'm easy to find on Instagram, too. I know that's how the kids communicate.
We'll list all that stuff down in the description. Thank you for coming on. You did not disappoint. All I knew was that I just really enjoyed you on YouTube, and who would know it, I enjoy you in person, too.
Wow. It's cool to be in the house of a thing that's entertained me so much, man. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike. And also, shout out to Zach on the
Yeah,
board.
Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's it this week. We'll see you next time. From the West Barn, we're signing off.